Hey, folks. So I wanna discuss with you folks in this video here on something that I've been noticing here with the channel here and everything, and it's nothing serious, by any means. It's nothing like all bad or whatever, because I'm still really doing great and everything here on the channel. But I just mainly want to talk about not necessarily a downfall or a falling that I've had, but I guess rather a shift in a sense with this channel here. Because alright, so let's just go to the beginning here, right? So all the way back, obviously, right, from not last January of this year, but of last year, 24, yeah, 24. I almost said 2014 for some odd reason, but back in 2024 of January or February, whatever, right? I did MLP horror AUs. I still do, them here and there and everything. But like, back around last year and everything, they were really big on the channel here, and I would get like at least 1,000 views, 1,000 to 2,000, maybe if I'm really lucky, up to five, six, whatever thousand, whatever. They were really big, and I do know that probably most of you folks, mainly came here, or at least from a time being, that most of you folks in the beginning, when things really started to take off, you folks mainly came here for the MOP horror AUs, and everything. And, I still do them, and everything today, but it's not anywhere near as big as it used to be. I'm getting at least 100, 200 views, and that's still pretty decent, honestly. And I'm not like complaining here or anything, 'cause I still get likes, I still get comments here and there and everything. Sometimes the creator themselves of that AU will come in and I'll just pin their comment just as like, an extra highlight. I do that every single time with every whatever content I'm making. If the creator themselves happens to come out and leave a comment saying thank you for this, or whatever the heck, whatever the reason or rhyme, I just automatically pin it just as an extra highlight that this is the creator right here, in a sense, and to help give a bit more credit to the actual creator that I'm making content for, that I'm showcasing and posting to you folks. That's how I've always kind of looked at it and done it. So that's why I always pin the creator, themselves every single time, and everything, just as like an extra highlight and everything. So that no matter what comments are, they would always see the creator's comment, firsthand, or at least, the video or game level, whatever, rhyme or reason. But I always do that. Excuse me. But anyway, I feel like I've kind of fallen off, or rather shifted in a sense, because I still get decent views, here on the channel. In fact, just recently on my on my Roblox video, the cheese rooms, if you will. Well, I just basically, I'm calling it the cheese rooms, maze cheese, whatever. Like it's a backrooms level, but it's just cheese instead or whatever. As some kind of joke, whatever though. But like cheese maze or some crap where there's like a rat chasing you, whatever, and you need to collect all of the cheese, and everything. That video's been doing pretty damn decent. I got like at least 400 and a half. Yeah, 400 and a half or whatever, 450, 60, whatever views so far and everything. I was not expecting it to take off that big, honestly, or at least that high, because I was like, okay, let's do something a bit horror-esque or whatever, it's been a minute since I've done Roblox, and everything, so I'm like, let's look at the cheese rooms, if you will. I don't know what level it is, but let's look at the cheese, let's get cheesy here with this, kind of a thing, and it's been doing pretty good so far. Another video of mine that's been doing pretty decent is my madness video on Paint the Town Red, which is basically blood gore Minecraft, you know, in a sense or whatever, because everything's still kind of cubed. The basketball's all cubed, everything's kind of cubed, but there's like big gore aesthetics and everything. So I played a madness level through that and everything, and that's been, getting decent and everything. So I'm overall doing okay, with my YouTube channel. I still get decent views on all of my videos here, on my reaction videos I've been doing and everything, and also with some of my gameplay videos that I do, and all sorts of things, even in my, dementia music review covers or whatever, which I do from time to time. Basically I cover, a project, a musical project about dementia, whatever, Alzheimer's, basically and everywhere at the end of time, fan project, that I go over from time to time, and I'll, look over and everything, and I'll cover all of the stages covers and descriptions and all of that and everything. Maybe point out some of the songs I really liked. I still like to do that from time to time. And I'm thinking of possibly doing another one sometime later this year. I'm not sure when, but I do, plan on doing that and everything. I overall like to do those kinds of videos and everything, and that's been pretty decent as well, especially with how long, I take with them and everything, and how kind of drawn out I do with that whole, kind of series or look over or whatever. Those have been, kind of decent and everything on their own standalone. But overall, right, the biggest, at least that was mainly the biggest, all the way from the beginning of last year and everything, was the MLP Horror AUs, mainly the MLP Horror AUs. Excuse me, my got something funny in my throat or whatever, right? But mainly, it was the MLP Horror AUs, right? And I did try to spread out a bit here and there with like a Gumball one and a SpongeBob one and some other things or whatever, even a Amazing Digital Circus one, which kind of left me overall kind of confused. I really like it overall better when everything's just all in one instead of a mixed media, because it really confuses me and makes me wonder on, wait, what's part of the AU and what's not, or it's like looking at different colors, and it's like, okay, which color really fits in with this canvas in a sense, because if it's all just wacky, then it's kind of just like slapstick for slapstick in a sense, But anyway, yeah, the MLP Horror AUs was mainly the biggest thing, and I feel like it was originally the main reason why you folks, came here to the channel here and whatnot. And now that they're not as big as they used to be, I don't really get anywhere the same views as I used to be. And I'm not like complaining or trying to, be lonesome or whatever here with this, because I still get decent views on the MLP Horror AUs and everything, and I still do do them from time to time. I don't know if it could just be audience fatigue, maybe, because I think that could be a possibility. But I do have, I do have kind of two theories or two ideas in mind as to maybe what made this shift happen, other than audience fatigue, which I think is kind of an unfortunate thing that sort of did happen here with this channel here, honestly. Well, obviously the audience gets, tired of the same old content. And let's be real here for a moment, right? A lot of the MLP Horror AUs, as much as they're all great and everything, some better than others, it is very samey a lot of the time, especially with a lot that I've covered here in the past, over last year. I even got tired of some of it before too as well, because it just became such a cliche at some moments. Like, oh no, Twilight's gone crazy and stuff. Another one that really got to me, and that really kind of ticked me eventually, was Celestia ditching Equestria for the trillionth time. Like, it's okay to have similar themes and everything in a story. I'm not trying to say you folks need to be completely different, but like at least add something a bit more to it than just the same character. Oh no, they left again. Oh no, Twilight's going crazy, again. She's mad. Like, it just gets a bit dry and samey, honestly. Even if it is good and everything, the cliches just kind of bring it down a bit, whether it's through prediction or just a sudden surprise, kind of a thing, It just gets really old and everything. And I don't know if you folks maybe felt that way with the MLP Horror AUs or whatever. Because I've done like a bit of them, and I really, really pushed over on the that one time where TikTok was like said to get banned or whatever, but Trump, covered it or whatever, or got the bill back or whatever, like about sometime last year or earlier this year, whatever the heck, right? I personally think, and my personal, unbiased, non political view, whatever here, right? I think the only reason Trump has even saved TikTok and brought TikTok back or whatever in a sense, resurrected it or some shit. I think the only main reason why Trump has TikTok back is just because it helped him during the election. That's like it, but that's just my take, my view on it. I really don't give a shit about politics, truth be told, or whatever, because honestly, politics is just, oh god. I'm freaking better off just tuning in to Stage 6 or whatever, genuinely, white noise music, than freaking politics at this point, because it's so bell dry and stuff, and it's just nothing but drama. It's all it is anymore. But anyway, I'm not here to talk about politics. I'm here to talk about the channel here and everything. And so, getting back all the way up to what I said before with the two reasons. I completely forgot on that. I kind of slipped on that. But anyway, the first reason I feel, and I think this is kind of the smaller of the bunch in a sense, the first reason I feel, in a sense, why I kind of fallen off a little bit is that whenever you folks would praise me, saying I'm great, that I'm a great YouTuber, that I'm the best, you're so good, Wistful, I would always say no. Or I would always say, that I'm not the greatest YouTuber. And I can kind of see to an extent why that can be a bit, not really deceiving, but just kind of loathsome in a sense, make others kind of low or whatever. And the thing is, right? And it's not that I'm trying to, like, push away your praise or whatever. I'm not trying to say, lies or whatever on, you folks praising me or whatever. I generally appreciate it. It's just that with me personally, right? With me as a person, whatever, I have a hard time accepting credit. You know, I'm really hard on myself, and I have a really hard time accepting credit because I genuinely just see, or at least I feel like there's always something that can just be done better. Even if it's at its best, even if it's at its completest or whatever. I just always have a tendency to see that there's just always something more, even if there isn't any more to give or whatever. And it would really annoy me, especially in the past, right? Because I'm autistic, I'm special needs, I'm whatever. I have autism, big deal, kind of a thing. But I do have autism and everything, and it would really annoy me in the past, through my learning life and changing life, whatever, right? Learning, the basic ABC 1, 2, 3 shit that we all go through and everything, right? Um, it would really aggravate me to an extent when I would basically do the same thing that the other non autistic person would do, but slower or whatever, or push myself more to reach the same standards. I would always get praise over little things, and that would honestly annoy me to an extent, and it's not like I can't accept praise or whatever, because I can't accept praise, and I do. It generally does make me happy that some of you folks think that I'm generally the best. It's just that through my own eyes, my two eyes here and everything. I always see something more, or at least I have a tendency to trick myself into thinking there's more when there really isn't, because I've always had praise even at smaller things. And even though, yeah, still it was a good accomplishment that I made it 2 extra steps or whatever, it took longer, but I still did 2 steps. It just felt like it's not really a praise to me if I do the same thing that the other person did and it just took longer because of how my brain works. Like that's not a praise. That's just the same. It's like beating a level. It's like nothing really changed. Nothing really changed. I just took longer to complete it or whatever, but that doesn't mean I get a bigger reward or whatever because I took longer on time. That's what it just overall kind of felt like here and there at times with me learning and everything and getting to know the world around me and everything. So I do have a hard time accepting praise. But another thing, and I think this is kind of the bigger of the two personally, the bigger of the two, as to why I may have fallen off a bit with the MLP horror AUs, again, other than just audience fatigue, but also with me kind of setting some sort of doomsday clock or whatever. And it's not that anyone's been saying this, no one said a word on this. This is just my own 2 cents on how I feel why things the MLP Horror AU hasn't really been necessarily as big anymore on the channel compared to a year ago. And I think the biggest thing, honestly, is me setting some kind of inevitable doomsday clock intentionally. I didn't mean to, whatever. But I felt like that because I would always say that nothing can last forever, or that there's more to it than just MLP horror AUs, and I still stand by that to an extent. But I just didn't want to. I just kind of felt like, and I still kind of do to an extent, honestly. But I still felt like to an extent of similar to what James has felt before. Well, he was just known as the MLP Bat Pony. He's the one that just does the MLP horror AUs and not this other stuff before. And I did branch out a bit more, before I did branch out a bit more, before he did. And that's why I kind of did all of the other content that I did before. But I think I kind of shifted a bit too fast, or at least kind of tried to a bit too much, maybe too quickly or whatever. Because, cause I don't just do, honestly, I would do MLP Horror AUs, but I also do, reaction videos, gameplays, vlogs like this and that, dementia music review covers, I have all of these things that I do before, and I know it can seem a bit excuse me, I know it can seem kind of a bit jarring to a new viewer or whatever, but I've never really liked the idea of just having one channel for one specific thing, like a gaming channel, a music channel. I never really liked that, like what James does. I just like to have all my eggs in one basket in a sense, and that's why I try to spread things out a bit to try and keep things a bit even, So, like, if I do a reaction video, I'm going to do a gameplay. And if I've done a gameplay, I'm going to do this, whatever. And then maybe this other thing, and then back to a reaction, and then gameplay again. I like to kind of try to even things out a bit, keep things as pattern based as I can, in a sense or whatever. I don't like doing, at least I try not to, to do 2 gameplays, uploads or 2 reactions. I try to keep things even and spread out and pattern based and everything, to an extent, because I like to do that. And I still do that with the MLP horror, AUs and other AUs as well and everything. But I think overall, and I'm not trying to like complain here in this video here, whatever, because I already did that before last year, and that was a ridiculous mistake that could have been a bit of a fall off, but I kind of recovered from that. But I feel like overall, it may just be audience fatigue, honestly, because, yeah, to an extent, it is samey and everything. And at least I still hope you folks overall enjoy, the MLP horror use and everything. And I'm not trying to, like, compare or say on stuff, like, they still watch on James' videos and stuff, because obviously he's much bigger than me. You folks probably came from him, coming over to me and everything. So I don't make that comparison, obviously, because no duh, he's got a lot more subscribers and a much bigger audience. So it's kind of inevitable in a sense, predictable to say that he, of course, gets more views when he does an MLP Horror AU, compared to me. But like with me before, where we used to be in the thousands before with MLP Horror AUs and everything, now we're at least a good 100 to 200 or so. And again, I'm not trying to complain. I'm not trying to whine or anything on this of views or likes or whatever, because they're not everything. But it's just something I kind of want to talk about and see what you folks think on this and everything. I personally think that other than, some of my, not really mistakes, but rather, I can't remember what it's called, intentional mistakes or whatever, non-intentional oopsies, if you will, whatever, right? Besides me, saying, yeah, I'm not the greatest, I don't, da da da, kind of a thing, but also me setting like a doomsday clock timer in the sense that nothing can last forever. And it's still true to an extent, but I feel like I've kind of made folks feel like there was some kind of doomsday clock in the sense that, or kind of push too much of a reminder that it's nothing can last forever. And it wasn't necessarily to like have your folks think of like, the future or whatever, or one day this trend's gonna die or whatever. I wasn't trying to like push your folks towards the inevitable end and stuff. But I was just more so trying to not only spread my branches, but also kind of wanted you folks to be more open to, different content besides just MLP horror AUs. And I think in some sense, I've personally chased some of you folks away. Not some, not all, but just, some, or maybe most of you folks, to an extent here and everything with that, because I still do MLP horror AUs and everything, but I feel like I've kind of maybe pushed everyone away to an extent because of the sort of doomsday clock in the sense of nothing can last forever. I didn't really mean on that. What I really meant more so on that kind of case when I said that was more so on that MLP horror AUs are great and everything, but there's also other content here on the channel. And I get it if, some folks, stick to one channel for one specific content. I'm very much similar myself with other YouTubers that I'm subscribed to as well and everything. It's kind of a sort of prediction kind of a thing and kind of an understanding thing in the sense, where like, you go to a restaurant, they have all these other options too, but what you mainly came for, and you're gonna get it every time and everything, and I do get that. I'm not trying to say you need to try or need to look at the other content that I do or whatever, but I just don't like the idea, similar to what James said before in his video. I just don't like sticking to one content or one genre or just one thing. And that's why I've kind of changed over a bit as well, or at least I kind of thought it was sort of a good idea to change a bit in a sense. And I did do it gently. I started doing horror gameplays and everything, to gently shift over, not to completely push away the AUs or whatever, but just shift over a bit, slightly, so that I'm not just stuck with just one thing, but to show you folks that there's other things as well that I do on the channel here. And it's still overall, great and everything. I'm glad you folks are still here with me and everything. I just think generally, at least to me, that I've either pushed you folks away unintentionally or some form of audience fatigue, and that, I don't know, just kind of got a bit stuck and not sure what to do, whatever. But anyway, folks, that's basically all there really is to talk about and say. I just wanted to discuss, my thoughts and everything here, and just kind of talk to you folks about this because I've been watching this for a good, since like the beginning of this year and everything, and I've noticed that things have been changing and shifted over and everything, and it's not like it's anything bad. It's not like anything, horrible. I'm not trying to downgrade or anything like that, honestly, generally. But it's just something that I've noticed, and I just want to discuss and talk with you folks, on this and everything, and see what maybe, your thoughts are here and everything. Um, I've, still obviously do content here and everything. And I definitely have more coming up later this week and everything. I just feel like something's definitely, changed in a sense. And, and it's not like a bad thing. I don't mind for that either, but, and I don't mind changing things up a bit. I just overall feel like the main course or the main folks that originally came here to the channel either, well, I guess they still watch it to an extent, but they don't really engage necessarily the same way. Again, it could either be audience fatigue or just something from my end. But either way, nonetheless, I'm not trying to shame you folks in any way, because I'm overall glad that you folks are here, and I'm glad that you folks still watch my channel here and everything. It's just something that I wanted to point out and kind of talk about and discuss with you folks and everything. I overall love you all very much and everything, and I am still very grateful that you folks are still here with me and that we can continue to do more with this channel here and with this journey together here and everything. I still have other plans that I'm gonna do. Like I said, I haven't said this before, maybe or whatever, but I have another video coming out eventually down the road. Another Dementia music review cover or whatever. It may or may not happen. I'm still kind of debating on that or whatever. But I do have an idea of what projects that I do want to cover next and talk about. So, since I've done that before and everything with all of the other Everywhere at the End of Time fan projects, along with Everywhere at the End of Time itself and everything. I really like to do that and everything, and I do that, from time to time, once in a great while and everything. But yeah, I still got other gameplay videos to do for you folks and some other content and everything. But basically, that's basically it for this video here, folks. I'm gonna stop my ranting and yammering and everything. But yeah, it's basically all there is for this video here. So with all of that being said, thank you folks all so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the bell icon so you folks don't miss out on a future video or post that I make in the future. And that you can always be kept up to date. And of course, if you have any requests or suggestions that you want me to go ahead and do, feel free to tell me down in the comments below. But anyway, that's all there is for this video here, folks. See you all sooner or later. Bye-bye.